Hello there and good morning. Sorry, I've got a puppy here that's pulling my cord. My bad. Um, Lauren Sisler here with AL.com, and it is time to start talking about the Auburn Tigers as we get ready for fall camp. Fall camp kicked off on Friday under new first-year head coach Bryan Harsin. And to talk about it, my friend Tom Green hanging out on the plains. Tom, great to see you. Great to talk to you. I know we got to spend some time together at SEC Media Days. And again, we call that talking season, but now it's finally started. We get to talk. We get to talk about some actual football as you were in the first and opening viewing period of this 2021 Auburn Tiger team. And just wanted to kind of get your overall thoughts and just some generalizations of what you saw. I know that you don't get to see a ton in some of these viewing periods, but just some thoughts on kind of how things were run under first-year head coach Bryan Harsin.
Yeah, I mean, we only got, 20 minutes in the morning for the veterans practice and then about 15 minutes in the afternoon when the newcomers had their first practice. And, again, we didn't get to see a whole lot. It was mostly individual drills. You saw some good on good work there toward the end. But, it looked a lot like spring practice, just a lot of movement, a lot going on, just all over the field with the different position groups at the same time. Saw some tight ends and tackles working on blocking drills, and then a lot of, quarterbacks working with tight ends, which I'm sure fans are going to love to hear after how little the tight ends have been used in the passing game over the years. We saw Bo Nix throwing a lot of passes to John Samuel Shanker and Luke Thiel. And then in the afternoon session, we saw TJ Finley and Demetrius Davis and them throwing some passes to guys like Brandon Frazier and Landon King. So, the tight ends is probably one of the biggest things we noticed early on. Cornelius Williams was really working hard with those wide receivers. You can see he brings a lot of energy to that group. Group's probably one of the bigger question marks just because, they've got a lot of talent there, but, just not a lot of experience. So kind of seeing who's going to step up there and emerge is going to be one of the big things. And then we got an early look at the offensive line. They got 8 guys with returning experience. Only 5 of them are going to be able to start. So it's going to be interesting to see kind of how that mixing and matching works for them to find that best 5 up front.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we'll dig a little bit more into the offensive line here in a minute. And just, I really just getting your thoughts, like just on the format of practice. Did you see any significant differences than what you're accustomed to? Now, again, we've had very limited viewing periods before with Gus Malzahn in terms of, I think we only had 3 during fall camp really for the last several years that I can remember. But did you see anything different just about the mojo, the energy, just the way things were run per se, than maybe you remember in the past?
Yeah, again, I think it's hard to tell just because, we're only getting that tiny little peek into it.
Right.
But, I think one of the biggest things is that everything that we've seen has been outdoors on that practice field and not in the indoor facility. I think they're really trying to get their conditioning up, get them used to that, early season heat that they're going to get in Jordan-Hare Stadium come September. And, just the energy that some of the coaches are really bringing to those position drills from the little that we've seen, obviously. I think that's really noticeable.
All right. And so we talk about Tank Bigsby. You wrote an article on AL.com, sort of just thoughts, consensus on his transformation from year 1 to year 2. And he comes into the season with a lot of accolades last year, high expectations. And by most accounts, he delivered on that. But then in year 2, it seems like there's a lot of high praise from him, across the board and especially from his teammates. What are your thoughts on that? And, the fact that he is much improved from year 1 to year 2.
Yeah, I mean, I think you look at the outside expectations. He's first team All SEC preseason. A lot of places like Pro Football Focus, say he's the best returning running back in college football this year. So there's a lot of outside expectations on him. He's trying not to pay attention to those, but it's kind of hard when you have the kind of freshman season he had. He had the most successful freshman season for an Auburn running back since Michael Dyer in 2010. Averaged more than 6 yards a carry. Was SEC Freshman of the Year. Really set a high bar for himself against a 10-game All SEC schedule where he didn't even really emerge as the guy until week 3 for them. So there's a lot of expectations on him, and I think Sean Shivers told us on Friday, he's even better this year. And I think that's something that Auburn fans are going to love to hear. Obviously, Tank Bigsby was, the guy for them last year. He was the highlight of that offense that was kind of inconsistent at times. But I think fans should expect to see, him take another step this year, especially, with this, wide open pro style offense that Mike Bobo and Bryan Harsin are installing. We're going to see a lot more downhill running, it seems. And that seems a little bit more conducive to Tank Bigsby's style. And, really just making him the focal point of that offense. And I think, he is going to be the guy for Auburn this year. And I'm eager to see what he does as an encore performance.
No doubt about it. And speaking of, obviously the running game will be very much contingent on the offensive line as well. And that you mentioned a little bit earlier on, criticism of the offensive line, was pretty heightened, last season, especially. It replaced 4 of its 5 starters in the 2020 season. And, by all accounts, and just talking to some of those guys and sort of what you've seen and heard within the program, it seems they're trying to change that perception. Give us your take on that and how critical that's going to be that they do show that for that improvement this year to have more success than they had a season ago.
Oh yeah, certainly, especially with a new coaching staff and a new offensive system. The success of this offense really hinges on how well that offensive line comes along. You touched on it last year. They replaced 4 or 5 starters. Nick Brahms was the only guy coming back with starting experience. So they were inconsistent at times. They did well against the run. They struggled some in pass protection. They had to move some guys around because of injury. Obviously Brandon Council midway through the season, he was probably their most consistent guy, but then tore his ACL, and then he was out in the spring with a shoulder injury too. So that, that really, impacted them last year. But now looking into this fall, they've got 8 guys coming back who started at least 1 game this year. Brandon Council's fully healthy. He doesn't have any limitations in fall camp. How far he goes is really just how well his body responds to getting back in the swing of things. But, when we were out there on the, first viewing period on Friday, he was running with the first team offense at right guard where he started most of his games last season. So really, I think he's going to be kind of the X factor in the wild card just because, he's a guy that had a bunch of experience coming from Akron, started at various spots along the line, can play any of the 5 positions up front, and was arguably their best lineman last year. So I think, where he fits in on that offensive line as they try to find their best 5-man combination is really going to determine a lot for this team because, they bring back tackles with experience like Rodarius Ham and Alec Jackson and Austin Troxell, JUCO guys like Brendan Coffey and Killian Zaire, both kind of developing still and, probably pushing for some reps there. And then obviously Nick Brahms is back for his 3rd year. And then at guard, you have Council, Keandre Jones, who played really well when he stepped in for Council, and then Tayshawn Manning, who started at left guard all last season. I think finding that best 5-man combination, how quickly they can figure out who's going to go where, is really going to determine a lot for this team.
Yeah, no doubt. And Tom, we got to be real. Obviously, across the board, not having spring football a season ago and getting to get spring football back and pairing that with fall camp, I certainly think makes a big difference. And that's a significant impact that we've heard coaches and programs and players talk about, all of last year and now heading into this year, kind of what a breath of fresh air it is to have had that to build on heading into fall camp. So certainly a lot of moving parts, a lot of question marks, but hopefully those will get answered as we get closer to kickoff. Thank you so much for your insight and your time as always. And thank you all for watching. Happy Monday to you.